I'm a subscriber.
Most of the programs we present are made possible by Channel 11 subscribers.
You're watching Channel 11 WTTW Chicago.
Headline News, I'm Brian Christie. Military forces in the Philippines are on full alert, but violence has still marred Monday's regional elections for thousands of governors, mayors, and local council members. At least 84 people have been killed in 6 weeks of election-related violence. Before casting her vote Monday, President Corazon Aquino had appealed for a peaceful and honest balloting. The polls are scheduled to close in a few hours. The polls in Haiti are now closed, and it appears disorganization and fraud have once again marred democratic elections there. Most Haitians boycotted Sunday's military-sponsored elections. Lucia Newman reports fewer optimistic about the outcome.
Voters, an essential ingredient for elections, were conspicuously absent at many polling stations throughout the capital, as thousands of Haitians defiantly stayed home to boycott the military-sponsored national poll.
I'm going to vote. No.
Hoy, no. ¿Por qué?
Tanks and heavily armed soldiers were out in force in a bid to show that, unlike last November's elections, the military and not gunmen loyal to the former Duvalier regime are in full control. Voters who did turn up at polling stations, many of them public servants, carried ballots handed out at random by supporters of some of the 14 presidential candidates who were in the race. The only observers were members of the government-appointed Electoral Council and soldiers, as people cast their vote in full view of everyone, leaving the process wide open to fraud and intimidation. In the provisional town of Grand Goave, population 60,000, only 61 people had voted by lunchtime, despite reports that the army would try and force a heavy turnout. Haiti's most enthusiastic voter was government leader Henri Namphy, the general that Washington had once bet on to bring democracy to the impoverished Caribbean nation. But with the cancellation of the last elections and the military in control of this second round, few have any illusions about the result, which local and international observers have already written off as a farce. The 4 front-runners in November's aborted poll aren't running as a sign of protest.
But I do believe, as a lot of people here, that it can be the foreigners as well as Haitians, that the next president is just going to be a puppet.
The man said to be favored by General Namphy is Gerard Philippe Auguste, a moderate regarded as acceptable to at least a portion of the army.
But deep divisions and rivalries within the military make it hard to predict who will next sit in the presidential palace. The feeling amongst the majority, though, is that no matter who wins, the Haitian people will have lost. Lucia Newman, CNN, Port-au-Prince.
Direct talks between Nicaragua's ruling Sandinista government and the U.S.-backed Contras may begin as early as this Tuesday. Saturday, Nicaragua's President Daniel Ortega surprised everyone by agreeing to participate in the talks and lifting a 6-year state of emergency within his country. Rebel leaders doubt Ortega's sincerity and say the U.S. must as well.
I'm sure that congressmen, the administration, and everyone will see through it. This is only cosmetic changes that mean absolutely nothing. He simply is not going to fulfill the commitments that he made yesterday.
The Sandinistas described the revival of regional peace efforts as a blow to what they call Reagan administration war policies. Israel began relaxing its latest punitive measures against protesting Palestinians in the occupied territories. Sunday, the military began lifting curfews imposed on refugee camps last week. Mike Greenspan reports there were other developments in the region as well.
The Palestinian refugees came out of their camp Sunday with empty baskets and high hopes. When people from nearby Gaza City arrived with an offering of free food, the refugees ran and jostled for a head of cabbage, for eggs, for other staple foodstuffs. Nearly 250,000 refugees in 11 camps are under military curfew. They say food supplies are running low. The army denies this.
If you take a truck in the middle of Tel Aviv and try to divide food without paying for, the mess will be even a bit bigger.
Meeting Israel's coordinator for the occupied territories, UN Undersecretary General Marek Goulding again decried the deteriorating situation in the camps. But the Army's former chief medical officer says the UN has prevented Israel from making improvements.
Because it is pure United Nations autonomy and we are not allowed to interfere.
In the West Bank city of Nablus, the Army did interfere. Troops did a bang-up job using pickaxes to burst the locks on stores closed in protest by Palestinian businessmen.
He told me to open it or he will hit me.
The soldiers did hit several youths suspected of inciting shopkeepers to join the strike. Several others were arrested.
The Army continues to try to force life in the occupied territories back to normal, but with little apparent success. What do you do after they break the lock?
We buy a new one.
Locksmiths have their hands full repairing the damage, but many of the 100,000 Palestinians who normally work in Israel are staying off the job, putting a dent in agriculture, construction, and public services. The situation has Israelis upset. In Tel Aviv, high schoolers about to be drafted into the army declared they won't serve in the occupied territories. In Jerusalem, the cabinet considered its next moves. But Israeli tactics have often backfired. The deportation of 4 Palestinian activists last week sparked further demonstrations, and the Supreme Court Sunday temporarily blocked plans to deport 4 others. Meanwhile, the hardship continues for the Palestinians and for the soldiers assigned to guard them. Mike Greenspan, CNN, the West Bank.
Soviet Foreign Minister Edward Shevardnadze is in West Germany. He is the first top-ranking emissary of Mikhail Gorbachev to officially visit Bonn. West German officials have been touting the event as the first step towards better relations with the Soviets. Shevardnadze is expected to discuss disarmament issues with West German leaders during his 3-day visit. In a rare question-and-answer session with journalists Sunday, Pope John Paul II said he would be willing to travel to the Soviet Union if he could meet with Roman Catholics living there. The pontiff also called on Moscow to recognize a clandestine Ukrainian church. The Soviet state is officially atheistic, but there are an estimated 2 million Catholics in the Republic of Lithuania alone. Well, President Reagan is expected to visit Moscow later this year. That's a frightening thought for those in charge of securing the U.S. embassy there. Ralph Begleiter files this report.
The prospect of another Reagan-Gorbachev summit in Moscow in just a few months has State Department security officials working against a deadline to be sure the U.S. embassy and the ambassador's residence in Moscow, where President Reagan will stay, are secure. Marine embassy guards stung by last spring's espionage incident involving a guard and his Soviet girlfriend are now being given special intensive courses in counterintelligence, and tougher guidelines about fraternizing with Soviet citizens are now in effect. Sensitive communications equipment at the Moscow embassy has already been replaced, and electronic equipment inside the embassy is being checked more frequently to be sure signals can't be picked up by Soviet espionage agents.
We're working hard and fast, and I would certainly hope that we would have most of it done by the spring.
In time for the summit, presumably.
In time for the summit, absolutely.
Espionage technology has advanced far beyond this microphone, which was planted in the heel of the shoe of an American diplomat working in Romania in 1969, or the one hidden in a pad of wallpaper samples left with an ambassador by Eastern Bloc agents. Secretary of State Schultz has made improved counterintelligence a top priority.
There are people who want to listen in on our confidential conversations and to read our most sensitive correspondence. We can't let them do that.
The Reagan administration has taken unprecedented steps to classify government information and to restrict news media access to government agencies as part of its counterintelligence effort.
Although Congress has trimmed the State Department's security budget, most of the cuts do not affect the counter-espionage programs like the one which hopes to secure the Moscow embassy by the time President Reagan gets there for the spring summit. Ralph Begleiter, CNN at the State Department.
En route home from his visit to the United States and Canada, Japanese Prime Minister Nobuo Takeshita saluted his country's friendship with America. During a brief stopover in San Francisco Sunday, he said the two countries could solve the problems regarding trade that exist between them. On the Tokyo Foreign Exchange Monday, the dollar traded at its highest level in a month. Improved U.S. trade figures boosted the dollar up 3.5 yen to close at just over 130 yen. The Commerce Department announced Friday the U.S. trade deficit was $13.22 billion in November, down from $17.63 billion in October. The Denver Broncos and the Washington Redskins will square off in Super Bowl 22. We'll have highlights on Sunday's conference title games in headline sports and more news after this.
watching Headline News on Channel 11.
American Playhouse presents Strange Interlude.
Sam's wife must find a healthy father for Sam's child at once.
Eugene O'Neill's epic tale of love, deceit, wealth, and desire.
This would have to be kept hidden from Sam so he could never know.
David Dukes, Jose Ferrer, Rosemary Harris, Ken Howard, Edward Petherbridge.
What do you want to be punished for, Nina?
Glenda Jackson stars as Nina leads, a woman desperate to find love.
For playing this silly slut, Charlie?
I've asked her to marry me. Do you think that I'll stay here to be your lover watching Sam with my wife and my child?
An American Playhouse miniseries.
Well, I don't love him. I only married him because he needed me and I needed children. And now you tell me I have to kill my baby.
Strange Interlude begins Monday at 9.
The Price, a thriller that pits fugitive Irish terrorists against a wealthy British family. The Price, a contemporary story of life and death dilemmas facing victims of kidnapping.
My family used to own it. You came from there.
Well, Charlie? Oh, perhaps you'd like to go back.
Can we go?
To Ireland?
You said we shouldn't be bombing our own people. We should hit the politicians, the rich.
He's gone bloody bananas.
The Price, a tale of wealth and desperation, of greed and extortion.
A powerful psychological thriller begins Monday at 10:30.
CBS Sports veteran oddsmaker Jimmy the Greek Snyder apologized Sunday for making offensive remarks about black athletes. During a meeting with presidential candidate Jesse Jackson, Snyder also promised to send letters of apology to black athletes and others. Snyder was fired Saturday after saying Friday that blacks were bred during the days of slavery to be better athletes. Thousands across the country will celebrate the birthday of slain civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Monday. Chuck Condor reports the festivities are already well underway in one part of California.
They marched in Fontana, California, in spite of the rain. Several hundred people singing the songs that inspired the civil rights movement of the 60s. They had gathered to honor the memory and the ideals of the Reverend Martin Luther King, Jr.
I'm marching because it's time to get out and get busy about bringing about peace and love in this country.
Martin Luther King gave us independence.
I didn't get a chance to march with the Reverend Martin Luther King in the early 60s. And also, I am here today to support the cause.
Local church leaders had organized the event, and in services Sunday, they warned their flocks that members of the Ku Klux Klan were expected to stage their own counter-demonstration. But organizers cautioned marchers to keep cool and remember the nonviolent principles of Dr. King.
Somebody says, is there going to be weapons out there today? You bet. It's the sword of the Spirit.
In fact, only a few members of right-wing hate groups were visible along the route of the march. No violent incidents ensued. Earlier in the day, local authorities had taken steps to avert the potential trouble. 3 weapons-related arrests were made before the march began, and groups of potential antagonists were identified and kept separated. But none of that distracted from the main focus of Sunday's event. For the marchers, it was a renewal of the vow to continue working for human equality and to honor one of the men who first kindled that flame.
Martin Luther King dreamed dreams which he shared with you and with me. And from those dreams, we took hope.
Chuck Condor, CNN, Fontana, California.
Employees at the New York Post are fighting for their jobs. Nearly 800 workers braved the cold Sunday to protest a law that could put the paper out of business. Recently passed, the law bars people and corporations from owning newspapers and television stations in the same market. That affects the Post's owner, media mogul Rupert Murdoch. Mayor Ed Koch was on hand to lend his support.
What we have now is something that is
equal, near equal in its impact, maybe even worse, because if you censor a paper, it's still open. But if you abolish the right of the paper to continue, then it's maybe even worse, although it's hard to envision that something could be worse than censorship.
Demonstrators harshly criticized Senator Edward Kennedy for his role in passing the law. While the United States may be losing a paper, the United Kingdom is gaining one. Richard Blystone reports it appeals to a very select audience.
First run for the new weekly is 50,000 copies. Early Times is aimed at the 8 to 14 age group and anyone else who cares to take a look. The publisher has no more experience at putting out a paper than most of his audience has at reading one.
We want the paper to be informative and entertaining to the children, but we see it as an educational aid.
Britain has a dozen national daily papers, from the lurid tabloids to the august Times. The first edition of Early Times leans toward the serious side and doesn't try to sugarcoat the news. On page 1, a short piece on the politics of Afghanistan and another on the uprising in the Gaza Strip. Inside, book reviews, a computer page, music, and sports. But will the classroom critics find it worth the 90 cents price and pester mom and dad to buy it?
It's a bit expensive for what it is.
And it gets the news across well and easily, and it makes it simple for you to understand.
The adults are trying to put into the children's mind what they want.
Even if Early Times doesn't prove a big hit with school kids, all isn't lost. On the BBC, John Craven's News Round, aimed at youngsters, is more popular than some entertainment shows, and half of its audience is grown up. Richard Blystone, CNN London.
Headline Sports is next.
Headline news on WTTW will continue.
Next on Nova. Climb into the cockpit of a high-speed fighter plane where technology has changed everything but the pilot. Are we creating planes people can't fly?
Technology has reached a point where it's not just that we're going to lose a pilot because the plane fails or something, but we're going to lose pilots because they can't operate the systems that are being presented to them.
Not only must the pilot attend to all the information that's presented on a myriad of controls and displays, he has to do this while being shot at, pulling G's, worrying about getting killed, or missing something that may be flying in from the ground or from another air threat. The fighter pilot's role is perhaps the most demanding one of any job in the world.
Is more technology the answer for Top Gun and beyond? That's next time on Nova.
The Making of a High-Tech Pilot, Tuesday at 8.
Thursday on 11, Soldiers, A History of Men in Battle. A compelling series that chronicles the true story of war through the ages, with each episode focusing on a different aspect of warfare, from the men who do the planning to the men who do the fighting. Author Frederick Forsyth is your host for a unique view of men in combat and the methods they employ.
The Story of the Big Gun, Thursday at 8.
This week on Mystery, Miss Marple suspects that her charming little hotel hides a deadly secret.
What was once so reassuring now seems to be false. Menacing even.
From now on, you leave her alone. Do you understand, Lousy?
Agatha Christie's at Bertram's Hotel on Mystery.
Miss Marple will be at Bertram's Hotel, Thursday at 9.
It's 49 minutes past the hour. Here's the latest from Headline Sports.
I'm Bob Pasella, Headline Sports. For the third time in the last 6 years, the Washington Redskins are Super Bowl bound. RFK Stadium in Washington, site of Sunday's seesaw NFC Championship game between the Redskins and Vikings. Tied at 10 with just 5:15 to play, Skins quarterback Doug Williams hitting Gary Clark, a 7-yard scoring pass, Washington taking a 17-10 lead. But this one would come down to one play. The Vikings with a chance to tie. 4th down at the Skins' 6-yard line. Wade Wilson to Darren Nelson, but he can't hang on. The Skins win at 17-10 and are heading to San Diego for Super Bowl 22.
If I picked two places I'd want to go to the Super Bowl, one would be Los Angeles, the other one would be San Diego. And to get a chance to do that, I guess I'm probably one of the most fortunate people in the world, really.
Well, at least you can say we had a good season and did a lot of things a lot of people didn't expect us to do. It's kind of hard, though, to accept, defeat because we really didn't have the game that we wanted to have.
The Skins will face the Broncos, who for the 2nd straight year are Super Bowl bound, and for the 2nd straight year beating the Cleveland Browns to get there. The Browns erasing an 18-point deficit when Bernie Kosar throws his 3rd touchdown pass of the game midway through the final quarter. But the Broncos take the lead back. John Elway throwing his 3rd scoring pass here to Sammy Winder, who scampers 20 yards into the end zone. But Cleveland with one last shot in the final 2 minutes. Ernest Biner, however, turns from hero to headed home. He is stripped of the ball. Denver recovers for a 38-33 win.
We really pulled together as a team, and it just feels right. It just feels like the right year for the Denver Broncos.
The Washington Bullets have now won 4 of 5 under coach Wes Unseld. Bernard King cans 28 in a 130-113 rout of Sacramento. And Terry Cummings hitting 25 in the Bucks win. One game in our collegiate top 25, Illinois ripping Tennessee. Chicago Stadium, big night for Dennis Savard. He finds the net 3 times, the hat trick. The Blackhawks topping the Capitals 5-4. Madison Square Garden, Brian Propp's first period goal helping propel the Flyers past the Rangers 2-1. It's Buffalo topping the Islanders and Vancouver, a goal better than Winnipeg. Bob Vasella, Headline Sports.
In the headlines, regional elections are underway in the Philippines. A gubernatorial candidate was killed hours before polls opened. Voters in Haiti boycotted Sunday's election sponsored by the ruling military junta. The White House says President Reagan will ask Congress to send more aid to the Contras. And the Israeli army has lifted curfews on Palestinian refugee camps in the occupied West Bank. One camp in the Gaza Strip was open to shipments of food on Sunday. With the top stories, I'm Robin Wells.
Checking Monday's weather forecast, a winter storm warning is in effect for northern Arizona, the southern mountains of Utah, and parts of Colorado. Snow is also expected for eastern Washington into Idaho and Montana. The northeast is likely to get more snow, while rain is expected in the southeast, parts of Texas, and the northwest. Highs will be in the 20s from Idaho east to the Great Lakes Monday. Temperatures will be in the 30s in the northeast and along the Rockies. And more news after this.
Good luck. See you later. I'll see you later, my friend. Okay, work hard.
What I'll tell you is he's here to make money, but he helps other people in the same.
What's the problem?
In a minute, here on 11.
Kalahari Desert, 2 American zoologists devote their lives to conserving wildlife and often live with danger.
Got company here,
Their reward is a life they love. This is Peter Coyote. Join me for African Odyssey, a National Geographic special.
Join us on an African Odyssey, Wednesday at 8.
Saturday at 7. Nature visits with African forest monkeys known as guenons. These colorful primates are 27 species strong, representing 60 different groupings of masks. Then at 8, Peter Graves is your host for a science potpourri of everything from avalanche prediction to aircraft simulators. It's this week's edition of Discover the World of Science, right after Nature, Saturday.
Data processing experts are becoming increasingly concerned about diseases infecting their information systems. Jeff Levine reports they can also affect people and cost them dollars and cents.
Call it the revenge of the computer nerds or electronic vandalism. But the phenomenon is known to virtually everyone in the industry, as well as many PC owners. Many have been victimized by this high-tech form of sabotage. The virus does its work stealthily, The unsuspecting user brings the program into his computer information bank, thinking it will be useful or entertaining. But every time the virus program is played, it destroys data. Computer viruses are also known as bombs, worms, or Trojans. These information-eating programs can be crude or sophisticated, but unless detected early, they can have a lethal effect on stored data. IBM was just victimized by a computer virus outbreak in its Tampa office over Christmas. The virus, in the form of a chain letter, spread like an epidemic. It bogged down the company's message system. There is also a danger from malcontents having access to critical data systems.
National defense, command and control computers, air traffic control, financial networks, stock exchanges. Consider the implications of a virus type of program having the capability to curtail or even shut down for a period of time those capabilities.
Tracking down the virus spreaders is difficult or impossible.
It could be hackers who want to go out and play, and that's a good portion of it. But I'd be more aware of the people who are working for you because they can nail you to a wall very quickly.
Experts are concerned that many organizations are vulnerable to the computer virus, and there are thousands with the expertise to build these user-unfriendly programs. Jeff Levine, CNN, Atlanta.
A Denver businessman is finding good help the easy way and maintaining both his profits and social conscience. Cheryl Potts explains.
Greg Mortensen is well known around the mall in downtown Denver. He's been servicing the area for 4 years as an employee of Artisan Services Incorporated. The corporation provides work for people the labor market normally labels unemployable.
Some of those are chronically mentally ill, mentally retarded, handicapped, ex-offenders, senior citizens.
Phil CVA is company president. He's building a $1 million service and construction business while providing choices for people who have few options.
Not only do the corporations benefit, because they get the same quality, they get the same price, but they also provide a place in which an alternative labor can do good and make a living and be a better person.
First thing he'll tell you is he's here to make money, but he helps other people at the same time.
CVA admits it takes time and patience to train the workers, but he says the extra effort is worth it.
I saw somebody that couldn't come to work, couldn't wear a uniform, couldn't fit into traditional roles, and now he's taking care of himself and paying his own bills and doing all those things that a lot of us take for granted.
CVA's employees are loyal and appreciative.
I think they realize they don't have the opportunity some other guys have. So once they learn what to do here, they like to stick around and do it, and they become more dependable and better employees.
CVA's success is defined by more than profit.
Good luck. See you later, my friend. Okay, work hard. I will. All right.
It's defined by his humanity. Cheryl Potts, CNN.
That's our report this half hour. Thanks a lot for joining us. I'm Brian Christie. Around the world in 30 minutes, this is Headline News.